An introduction to the controller's WorkMonitor view. Within a typical operation, this is the screen where the controller would spend at least 90%, if not all of their time. All of the information relating to employees on site and the assignment locations themselves is accessible from this single screen, and all of the actions that they need to take in the management and monitoring of the time and attendance is done from this screen also. To explain what we're looking at, assignments can be separated into branches, and these are containers that can be based on geography, north, south, east, west, perhaps service type, cleaners, security, dog handler, engineers on call, or perhaps manager's portfolio, so Mr. Smith's sites, Mr. Jones's sites. And the branch that the assignment relates to is indicated down the left hand side. The controllers can filter different WorkMonitor views, so they can say, for example, only show me the security division, and anything that does not relate to that is immediately taken away from their view, or they could say show me everything except security, and similarly the view changes. You can create as many WorkMonitor views as you like to manage the business in the way you need to manage it. If you have two control rooms, for example, you might have one control room monitoring Alpha region, and you might have another control room monitoring Bravo region. And in the event of Bravo region being unable to monitor for any reason, they can contact their colleagues, who can then just select all and take over. The assignment locations are noted down the left hand side, and the post on which the call relates is detailed also. Posts separate positions within a single location, so front gate, back gate, dog handler, etc., etc. The employee and the type of call. On calls relate to officers expected to book on for duty, and check calls relate to welfare calls that might be scheduled hourly, 2 hourly, every 30 minutes, whatever you need. And of course off calls with officers booking off duty. The colours of these calls vary depending on their status. Red are overdue. This call was due at 0700 in the morning. The officer could have booked on any time from 06:45, and by 07:05, if the book on call hadn't been received, then the call goes into alarm and is considered late. When a call is late, one or more actions may or may not result depending on how you set the system.
Amber means that the actual start time has passed but has not yet exceeded the post time window or become late, in this case after 10:45.
Calls that are green indicate that the time has been reached for the expected call, but it has not yet reached the out of time, so it's not considered late. And calls that are white are not within the pre or post time window at all. The PIN number that relates to the employee and the site number that relates to the location are detailed, and the times we've just discussed here as well. The number of active incidents is indicated up here for the controllers, and the controller has a number of calls, call actions buttons across the top. So for example, Old Hospital, an employee called Hawk. If this employee phoned up and booked on verbally, the controller can take this call. They can select from any number of configurable reasons, so we can say officer called, and you can say call from officer on duty, and he can take that call. This call will disappear and to be replaced with the next due call, and in this case it's the check call down here. So we only ever see one call for the duty in question, and each time that call is handled, the next expected call is put in its place. Controllers can create duties from this screen as well, so they can click create. They can pick from a number of different duty types, and in this case we'll just pick standard duty, but well, you know, so we can create a training shift. We can pick the assignment that this training shift relates on, and we can pick the branch. So we can say that it's going to relate to the security division and it's going to relate to Edmonton Green. We can create the duty. We can say that this is going to be a duty supervisor post duty, and we can pick the times. And in this case, we'll say that the time is going to be 1100 until 1500. If we know the officer that we're going to assign, we can select the officer from the list here, and of course we can go to other branches if we need to. Or we can ask the system to list officers that might be suitable to work. So we can see here that Mr. Spanner is available. He's not banned from this assignment. He has the required qualifications, or there are no qualification requirements set for this position. He's not currently resting, so he's not just come off a night shift or anything. The officer is trained to work on this site, or no specific training is required. The officer hasn't worked here before. Daily overtime 1 and 2 and period overtime are not going to be invoked, so it's not going to generate a higher than normal payroll bill if we schedule this officer. Whereas if we picked Aaron Smith, for example, it would generate a period overtime bill. And it's not going to exceed the number of hours that this officer is allowed to work a week, so we'll pick this officer. We can leave a reason for ourselves here. In this case we have one, but we could select multiple reasons that the controller could pick from, and we'll just say it's a late request from a client. Now we can click Save and Notify, and this will send a notification of this duty to the officer that we've allocated. This can be delivered via text or via email. We won't do it in this instance, we'll just save the duty. So the controllers can schedule from here and effectively do everything they need to do. We can change the times of duty. So this officer is due to book on at 0700. He's very late, but we can change the time, and we can change this to 10:45, and we can say this officer is late arrival, for example. We can save that. The call has moved down here where it's now ready to be taken, and we can take this call. And we haven't got late here, but we could have one called late. We'll say outside window, late arrival on site, transport issues, and we can take this call. This officer is marked as being on duty, and the next check call that's scheduled has been presented on the screen. This duty has no officer allocated to it. So we're expecting somebody to work at Nelson Mandela House for the day shift. There's no officer allocated, and we can do that from this screen as well. So we can select allocate, and again we can ask who's suitable and who's available, and we can put in Mr. King. We can leave a note or not. Mr. King is now scheduled to the position, and again we can book this officer on if we want to. We can say take this call, we can say officer assigned, and the controller can take this call. The move function allows us to relocate an employee from one position to either a different location or different post on the same location, or to a different event. In this example, we will say that Mr. Harrop has phoned in and reported himself sick for his duty commencing at 1100. So we select the move action, and we're presented with two choices. We can relocate this officer, unallocate the selected event, and create a new event for the employee, leaving this position active but with no employee assigned to it. Or we can delete this selected event and move the officer to another event. In this case, we'll leave it active because although Mr. Harrop won't be working on this duty, somebody else is going to have to. We select next, and in this example we've said that Mr. Harrop is reporting himself sick. Any number of different events can be created. It might be a training shift, lateness, whatever your operation needs. We select next, and we'll leave the times as for his current duty, and we will say reported as unwell. We can select Save and Notify, and we can send a notification of this action to the employee via text or email, but in this example we'll just click Save. The system is warning us that Mr. Harrop does not have a sickness entitlement set, and as a result of this it can't warn us as to whether this is going to exceed Mr. Harrop's sickness entitlement. We could have set that. The duty is now marked as unallocated and a new officer is needed. And we can, once again, we can go to our allocate function, we can list suitable officers, and Mr. Peters is an officer who is suitable to work on this assignment. And we can say, covering Mr. Harrop's sickness. Mr. Peters is now scheduled to this position. The finish function can mark a duty as complete and finished. So if this officer phones up and for whatever reason the duty is terminating early, we can mark this as finished. And the duty is gone. The delete function naturally deletes the duty. If we select this duty and select delete, the info tab gives us information relating to a duty. So if we select this duty here and select info, we can see basic details about the duty, the start time, the finish time, and the location of the contract and the employee that's assigned. We can see additional details relating to the location, its name, address, its phone number, details relating to the post and contract references. And we can also, by selecting this icon, we can have a look and see exactly where this assignment is located. Similarly with the employee, we get details to the employee, their next of kin if that information had been entered, full address details. We can see calls that are scheduled for this officer. So the book on call was expected at 0600. It was actually made at 10:38 via WorkMonitor, this screen. And we can also see that as a result of this employee not booking on, an email and SMS messages were generated and dispatched to whomever has been set as the notifies for these sites. We can see information relating to this duty. We can see when the duty was scheduled and who it was scheduled by, the user, Gallinet Support 1. We can see that check calls were assigned to this schedule shortly after, and we can see that the book on was taken by the same user. And we can see comments that the user has entered as well. There are no incidents attached to this duty, and we can see details as to pay, and we can adjust the pay as well if we need to, and if we are so authorized. We have a search function, so we can search for a location. For example, if we know the postcode, we can search the postcode for 100% accuracy, but if we don't, we can just search for keywords and it will return a list of possibilities. In this case, there is only one. Edmonton Green has been found. If we pick another site, like for example, we can search for an employee. So we can say we're looking for an employee search, and we can say Cliff. And here we have Cliff Richard with 100% certainty, and Mr. McKen with a 50% certainty, because somewhere in Mr. McKen's record, maybe in his address, the string Cliff appears. Confirm allows us to mark a duty as unconfirmed or confirmed. It's a toggle. So this on-call for Cliff Richard here, we can select confirm, and we can say pending confirmation from employee. We can click save. The duty is set to italic to mark the fact that there is something about this duty that we need to address later on. The WorkMonitor screen refreshes automatically every 15 seconds, but we can invoke a refresh at any time by clicking the refresh button.